Okay, hello and welcome. My name is Chris Welsh and I'll be hosting today's webinar. I'm currently heading up TV and entertainment for MPP Global across Europe, Middle East and Africa. I'm sure most of you by now know quite a bit about MPP, but for those of you that don't, we're the leading provider of advanced CRM and e-commerce solutions to the media and entertainment industries, and we specialize in monetizing digital content and digital assets. We work with a whole host of blue chip brands such as BSkyB, News Corporation, Philips, Telegraph Media Group, DMG Media, Unidad and so on. As you can see, the webinar is called Sizing Up Your Audience, and we'll be discussing how operators can convert free TV customers to paid TV services. So again, thank you for joining me today. There is quite a few people on the call, but we're still expecting some more latecomers. Okay, before we get started, I suppose I'll talk you through some housekeeping rules. Okay, so if you look at your screen now, you can see that just a couple of housekeeping pointers before we begin. So we'll be answering questions at the end of the presentation. Well, from my experience, it's best to answer these questions at the end, otherwise the webinar can become quite disjointed. So please don't be shy. If you wish to ask a question, just click the raise your hand icon, and which is demonstrated on the screen now. Alternatively, type your question in the chat and we'll try to answer as many as possible at the end of the session. We'll also be conducting a simple poll too, so please follow the instructions online and we will share the results with you next week of those results. Okay, so moving on to contents today, what will we be looking at? There are several areas we want to look at today, which you should see on your screen now. This isn't exactly an index though as such, but we will try and cover each of these areas throughout the duration of the presentation. So we'll be discussing the following: from cable to the cloud, so migrating content, subscriptions and services. We'll have a look at big data, so how to measure and manage your customers in real time, of course. Best practices and strategies for monetizing the multi-screen. And lastly, we'll try and discuss how to implement value-added services to maximize your customer base reach and so on. Okay, so before we get into the presentation proper, we'll just have a last little look at cable. So you should be able to see a diagram coming onto your screen now. Okay, so as a starting point, here's a dummy's guide to cable, if you will. So as you can see, cable has traditionally used the following aspects to drive content into the home, including network-based delivery systems, satellites, of course, antennas, amplifiers, and cables. So they've been pushing linear TV channels into the home via cable to multiple users on a shared device viewing the same content at the same time. Lastly, don't forget, cable was a cloud before the cloud became cool. So a little tongue-in-cheek, I know, but the point does remain. Cable has always been a network-based distribution system, and like the internet cloud, cable's content and servers have long been drawn from centralized servers. And if we're talking about clouds, cable TV services come to systems via satellites that are, 20,000 miles away in space, far and beyond any real clouds that we know of. Okay, so from cable to the cloud and why operators are moving. So that's the big question. Well, you'll see a load of aspects on the screen. I'll talk about them now. But the grim news that has smacked broadcasters in the face earlier this year was that sales of television sets actually dropped for the first time in history, which is another illustration that linear operators need to adapt or react to consumer trends. Also, the ways that consumers are accessing this OTT content continues to grow, whether it's via a dedicated set-top box such as Apple TV or Roku, or using a laptop, gaming console, tablet, or even a smartphone. A recent report published by the research firm the Diffusion Group found strong viewer interest in having access to multi-screen live linear content, with 75% of pay TV subscribers saying they were highly likely to use multi-screen live services if they were offered to them by their current provider. The survey also found that these services might generate new revenue from digital advertising, but also bring content distributors additional subscription revenues over the course of that relationship. Cable is looking to the cloud to improve the user experience, exploring the prospects of cloud-based technologies and applications for the broadcast media. It addresses the market drivers, key technologies, MSO roadmaps, and supplier and consumer markets. Cloud television is happening because operators need a consistent way of to service the growing landscape of IP-connected multimedia devices in their collective service footprint. And if it's built with a software mentality, which matters in the pursuit of a culture of continuous service agility. Okay, so cloud-based video is helping service providers quickly and continuously to do two main things. One, deploy new services on the viewer-facing side, and two, on the back office side, flexibly establishing workflows, storage efficiencies, monetization models, and advanced advertising. And these things really do matter, because a huge priority for the next few years is for operators to take back some market leadership from those lovely people over at the World Wide Web who have been showing us a clean pair of heels in recent years. So there are other factors to consider, such as, enabling interactive capabilities, whether that's through a second screen engagement, advanced EPGs, interactive EPGs, so electronic program guides that enable us to link to social, to buy items that are being advertised and so on. There are many different aspects for cable, why they should move to the cloud. Okay, so what can we expect in the future for linear operators? Okay, OTT is one answer to a question long asked by the industry. How do we embrace the progressive technology at our fingertips without alienating an existing business model? And perhaps most pressing, if there is a risk in delivering video to consumers without having control of the very content a network has obviously worked so hard to create. Before going any further though, it might be important to distinguish the difference between two OTT services currently available. Well, as I see it at least. Pure play OTT includes streaming services such as Hulu, Love Film, Netflix and so on, and is streamed using a dedicated set-top box, gaming console or similar. Another service called TV Everywhere is available from a pay TV provider, offering an app maybe that allows subscriptions to view the pay TV content on mobile devices, including live streaming of linear TV itself. Either way, viewers are paying to view the content through their broadband or linear provider. Okay, providing TV Everywhere services offers the potential for, of course, new customers via a connected digital platform capable of delivering targeted advertising, rich branded entertainment and fresh subscriptions. And major networks have begun to jump on board the OTT train via TV Everywhere, touting the technology's ability to reach consumers. The jump makes sense to me because by connecting the dots between its various content creation arms, for example, like the ABC television group has done in the States with ESPN and the Disney Channel, linear pay TV subscribers could then stay loyal to a network of their own choice by watching distributed program on a secondary device. So unlike video on demand or IPTV, which gives content owners hands-on control over the distribution of content, OTT players such as Netflix and others show that technology and the mindset itself is ready for wider adoption. Lastly, MSOs will overcome the limitations of legacy set-top boxes and outdated software by launching next-generation EPGs, especially if they infuse them with IP streams. So MSOs can enhance the user experience by providing a guide that offers more convenient discovery features and simple TV applications such as news, sports, traffic and even weather. In addition, these EPG serves as an aggregation point for social media and popular websites formatted for the TV itself. Okay, so moving on, we're going to have a look at some of the challenges, the key challenges facing the sector. Okay, so you should be able to see those coming onto your screen today. This is by no means a generic approach, but it's certainly MPP's approach. So there are challenges facing the industry today, and they are plentiful. And as we have only 30 minutes together today, I've highlighted four main challenges, what MPP like to call the 4 M's. So migration, how can operators migrate linear CRMs, linear subscriptions and services to the cloud? Measure, so how can we measure our consumers and formulate key intelligence to help grow our businesses? Monetization, so how can we best monetize new digital services? Is that through advertising, transactional video on demand, subscription video on demand, metered access and so on? And lastly, maximize, so how can operators maximize their return of investment and customer reach? So these are all challenges. So what are the solutions? I'll take each in turn. Okay, so in terms of migration solutions, there are a number of things to consider, including using specialist CRM providers or building one in-house is an essential cog to your overall offering. How can you seamlessly migrate your CRM without interfering with current subscribers? Well, I can provide you with an example. When we won the DMG contract recently, we needed to migrate end users from their long-standing CRM to an MPP hosted one. We did that organically by pushing new customers onto our CRM when they registered for the first time. Also, when a current subscriber, for example, met a renewal trigger point, they would be transferred onto the new system. So within 12 to 18 months, say, all DMG's customers will now be on an MPP hosted CRM. Of course, there are other ways of doing this, for example, integration, so CRM integration. And what is crucial in the integration between a current CRM system and a CRM hosted by a payment partner or a specialist provider is the connection of the two services. And an MPP, this is done via what we call the golden key. The golden key is an irrevocable link, really, between your customer's data in your CRM system and their corresponding payment account in the MPP system. And this exists as a unique reference linking your customer's payment account and their account in your CRM system. So converting linear subscriptions is another challenge for migration, and there are a number of ways that this problem can be addressed, including offers and incentives, marketing, and offering new digital services themselves. The UK market, for example, was always traditionally a free TV landscape until Sky came along 15 years ago or so, and then we were asked to start paying for this content. And Sky had to do a number of things before we started paying, obviously. So they had to secure fantastic content, whether that's Premier League football, Hollywood movies, and so on. They had to provide great services. And lastly, what they did was run great offers and incentives. So whether that was low start offers for a new subscription, metered access models, so 3 months free or 10 items free and so on, or even win-back offers once these subscriptions fell away. So those are some ways you can counteract those problems. And digital services for a digital audience, the last one on the list there. So pay TV is in transition now, as we know, and it is no longer really a push industry whereby fat cats sitting in boardrooms deciding what the nation watches at what time and so on. It is now very much a pull industry, so the consumer gains more and more control of what they want to watch, wherever they like and whatever device of their choice. So operators need to provide cutting-edge TV Everywhere services available on multiple devices with a single sign-on across platforms for the end user, and of course a reliable service. If you miss out on any of these key areas, then the likelihood is that your customer will simply move on to an alternative, a competitor of yours. Okay. The next one was measure. So some of the challenges facing measure is, big data, reporting, targeted marketing, and so on. So measuring your growth and creating reports, KPIs, and other intelligence is an essential aspect for growth. An old colleague of mine used to always say, if you don't measure, you can't manage, and he might as well have had his tattooed on his forehead. He said it that often, but the thing was, he is right. It is an essential part of securing the intelligence you need to grow and improve. Linear operators have obviously large data pools of existing subscribers and long histories of customers. So how can they use that data? They can market and inform our audiences that they have new services available online. And once they get those customers converted, it's essential to understand their viewing, purchasing, and order histories. From that point, we can furthermore understand the demographics and what is important to your customers, so how they like to pay, what's their preferred content even, and so on. The intelligence that the industry needs. So we need advanced reporting and real-time analytics to create stronger targeted marketing campaigns. Okay, monetization is next on the list. So monetization, at its simplest, consumers are able to view OTT content in two ways: by downloading an app to a mobile device or by watching online via a linear stream or video on demand. So one major hang-up for the industry has been the issue of revenue. So how best to market and price programming that comes through a secondary device. Discussions are ongoing with networks and affiliates about how this OTT relationship can be mutually beneficial to both parties and what business models work for them all. So there are no right and wrong answers in this area, well, unless you don't understand your customer, of course. The model you provide must be attractive to your target audience. So what's right for the business, of course, is very important, but without understanding how end users will pay for content, then it will be an uphill struggle from day one. There are many different models, including, centralization, so having a central payment wallet, for example, where a customer could purchase any content for that provider and that of their third-party service providers. A single sign-on. Micropayments is important, so if you're monetizing low-value price goods on a transactional video-on-demand site, this is certainly something I'd recommend. Offers and incentives is another one. We've touched on that already with Sky, who did it so well in the UK, and we can see some of our customers in Germany starting to do this very well. Metered access is another fantastic model, so we see it a lot in publications, but in broadcast media it can be just as useful. So if you had a video-on-demand store, an online video-on-demand store, a user could maybe access 1 week of content for free or the first 10 videos for free. It's just a good way of engaging your customer, getting them to get their fingers dirty on your product before you ask them to pay for the privilege. Central payment wallets, subscriptions, recurring billing, all models that are very important to the industry. But as I've mentioned at the start of this slide, it's really about understanding your own customer and how they'd like to pay for your services. Okay, so the last one of that on this list of challenges, I've just seen a notification that there might be some audio difficulties. If you're having any problems, please do send me a chat message, otherwise I shall continue. Okay, so how do we maximize return of investments? Well, besides good CRM and customer support, we must consider the following: reach and scalability. So have you got a global offering across multiple territories? So do you offer local payment types, currencies and languages? If you don't, is this a barrier your potential customers need to overcome before accessing your content? So I can only speak English. If I was in Spain, would I really be able to pay for a Spanish video-on-demand store if I couldn't read the language? These things are important. Localization services are an integral part of monetizing an international product. We've discussed offers and incentives already, which are great ways to grow businesses, engage with customers, upgrading, side grading and so on. But a really strong believer in reach and scalability is a great way of maximizing your customer reach. Okay, this nicely leads us on to a break in the webinar. So you should be able to see it on the screen now, the question. So what percentage of broadcasters' revenue will be generated by digital services by 2015? As industry professionals, all your viewpoints are welcomed and appreciated here at MPP, so we really encourage you to answer this question. I'm going to launch it now on your screen. Bear with me. Okay, so I have launched the poll. It should be open on your screen. If you could quickly just follow the instructions and just make a quick vote, we'd appreciate it. And along with a recording of the webinar itself, we will send this over to you next week. Okay, so we've got quite a few votes in now. I'll just give you another 10 seconds to create a vote. So the voting is quite simple. Obviously, it's done split in 25%. It's quite a broad spectrum, I know, but I think it still will be a useful exercise to get your points of view. Okay, so over 80% of you have voted. Thank you very much for that. Okay, so I'm going to close the poll. Okay, as I said, we'll get that over to you with a link to a recording of the webinar next week as well. Okay, so next, we touched on, excuse me, we spoke about CRM once or twice already during the presentation. I'd like to just focus on it for a little minute if we can. So I really believe CRM is it's an essential part to driving your business forward, gaining that intelligence of your customers and so on. So I want to take a deeper look at it at this point. Okay, so important aspects of CRM include centralization. So can you centralize everything via your CRM? So your customer support, your revenue, analytics, financials, any offers and campaigns you're running, they should all be centralized via your CRM system in your back office. Okay, single view. Do you have a single view of your linear and digital customers within this space in your CRM system? Can you see their full order history? Can you manage the full billing life cycle of their subscriptions and so on? Targeted services and marketing, customer support, localization, tax management, even in digital rights management. All these things are very important and should be included in a sophisticated back office and CRM system. If you forgive me, I'm going to flick through some very quickly through some examples of MPP CRM. This CRM is being used currently by a lot of our customers like Sky B, News Corp and many other leading brands. So hopefully you will find it a useful little exercise. Okay, so on the screen now you can see a dashboard. So this is a master dashboard. Like any good CRM, your recently loaded items are there. You can view revenue versus last year, last week, and so on. You can see any recently viewed customers. It's also a tiered level service, so you can give different visibility to different members of your team. So customer support might only have access to customer details, customer details, virtual terminals, performing refunds and such. But your Seaboard executives might have a helicopter view of everything and sensitive information too, like revenue. Okay, next slide is just a quick one. So if you use our CRM, you search, you find a customer, you bring up that customer, and you can actually see that customer's total value on a snapshot. You can see any recent contact history of the customer support team. You can view their order history. You can check entitlements against any live subscriptions they've got. There's even obviously this section on the right-hand side which has some sensitive metadata that you could use to ask any security questions you so desire. Next one's offers. We touched on this before. So if you think back to Sky 15 years ago, they had to run lots of different offers. We're seeing that in Germany and other markets right now. We have a load of preloaded offers and campaigns available via our back office, and you can utilize them here. But in a matter of seconds, you can create a brand new offer, give it control any pricing parameters you'd like, and give it a start and finish dates and program offers moving forward throughout the year via this suite. And you can do that in a matter of seconds. Again, creating a service in this instance, in your instance as broadcast and cable operators, this would be a subscription. So I can create a brand new subscription for my business using this back office. I can give it a title, a description, control any pricing parameters, whatever currencies and payment methods I'd like to support, and publish it live. So I can create a brand new subscription for my business in a matter of seconds. Okay, so there's a couple of quick little demonstration slides on that. I do have a whole host of demonstration slides I could share with any of you should you wish to have them, but for the good of the group, I prefer to do that offline. So if you'd like to talk to me a little bit more about CRM or payments, by all means, please do get in touch after the presentation. We can organize a conversation. Okay, so another in focus section is value-added services. This again is another great way of converting linear subscriptions to online services, paid TV services, and so on. So value-add services to consider. Of course, you need to look at CRM and payments, but then the value-add services could be things like, can I sign on via social? Can I sign on via Facebook, Twitter? Have I got a single sign-on across all of my devices for my TV Everywhere solution? Is there localization services? Can I monetize in different countries? Revenue analytics, entitlement management. Subscriptions and entitlement management is obviously a huge thing for the broadcast media, and it's something we do very well. So, for example, with a Sky Go application, which we monetize, and we also run the subscriptions and entitlement system on the Sky Go application. Before a high-profile Premier League football match, we could have 400,000 or 500,000 people all logging into that application at one time, a couple of minutes before kickoff, and we have to release that content and make it permissible by access after checking all those entitlements. So we have the ability to do that in real time, and you should obviously, as broadcast operators, should have a similar system in place. Okay, I've got a couple of quick demonstrations for you at this point. So as I mentioned before, we work with a lot of high-profile broadcasters and publications. One of those is Sky B in the UK, so we handle subscriptions and entitlements for them. We monetize their Sky Go applications, and we also monetize their Now TV project. Now TV is on the screen. If you're not aware of what Now TV is, it's a brand new service from Sky, the first of its kind in the UK, whereby you can pay for a day pass for Sky Sports or pay for a day pass for Sky Movies. So this is the first of its kind in the UK, and it's the numbers in the early months have surpassed all our expectations. It's going very well. I think Sky have actually branded this as a pay TV light solution. So I don't know whether that's an industry term or whether it'll catch on, but it's certainly how Sky would describe this solution. Okay, so if we have a little look on the screen now, this is a payment page. There will be some payment pages that we host at this point. So we're using the end user selected what they'd like. This, as you can see, it's a white label payment service. They're quickly going to complete any metadata that are fields that are required of them at this point. At this point, we, MPP, and well, your provider should be pushing this metadata to a CRM, whether that's an integrated one or one that the client hosts themselves, and then they can, and also the payment details will be encrypted and pushed to a secure server to enable future actions against that card via API calls. So, you know, whether that's recurring billing or processing one-click transactions on a transactional video on demand site. Okay, so that was a new user registering, fairly straightforward. The next example is a returning user. So as you can see, this user will be able to just simply come back, log in. It could actually just click remember my username, as you can see in the middle, and then it's simply all they'd need to do is enter his password to purchase any products on this site, or obviously just to check his entitlement at that point. Okay, so is there any questions at this time? If you have any questions, please do raise your hand and we will endeavour to answer as many as we can. Okay. Oh, we have one coming in now about micropayments. Okay, so why are micropayments increasingly being used? What's the benefit? Okay, well, micropayments are being used, well, primarily for transactional video on demand sites. So if you had a site that was was selling movies maybe for £2 or £3, that would be a good example. So like the iTunes model, this enables post-pay micropayments. So like the iTunes model, this enables customers to point, click and buy essentially, and any number of products or even services. So post-pay is normally aimed at websites which have content available for purchase at low value price points. And it will enable the customer to browse the site, consume content without having to re-enter payment details or even their password actually each time they make a purchase. So and then both prepay and post-pay micropayment models make it a very economical way to process transactions of low value. So this is because banking and the PSP fees are reduced as the number of round trips to the bank are minimized. And only just internal transactions are accrued instead. So that's essentially why it's better. It's convenient for the end user to simply hit click and buy throughout their journey on your site, and it's also much more commercially viable to yourselves as you're only paying one external transaction fee. So you can set up 2 trigger points, either value or time. So you might set it up as £20 or 20 days, and whichever comes first, then you would take the payment off the consumer, populate in the central payment or central merchant account, and then obviously an invoice would be sent to the customer itself. With prepay, it's pretty straightforward, obviously, but it is increasingly being less used as postpay because of iTunes and similar models. So prepay is, quite simple. You load it up with some balance, and you bear down against that credit as you consume more content. So I hope that answered your question, John. Have we got any other questions? Metered. We've got a question about metered access. Okay, so metered access, as I said, we see it in broadcasting and publications. So with publications, an example would be where they set a trigger point of 10 articles on a website, on a news website. So that end user can log on, they can view, they can read up to 10 articles, and then when they hit the 11th article, they're going to be asked to pay for that. And why we see that model being used is that it's a great way of engaging with potential customers that maybe want to sample your product before they're happy to pay for it. So it's a good way of getting customers engaged before you ask them to pay. Okay, all right, so there's no more questions at this point, but I would encourage any of you to obviously get in touch after this if you'd like to have a conversation one-on-one about any aspects within this presentation, or of course if you have any requirements of your own you would like to explore with us, I'd be more than happy to do so. There should be some contact details coming up on the screen very shortly. Okay. There's some There's some contact details coming up on the screen now. As you can see, we're on Twitter, LinkedIn and Facebook. I'd encourage you to follow us on Twitter. Actually, you find out about all our upcoming webinars, and also we do post a lot of white papers and industry statistics and good articles that would be certainly very beneficial to use. I know that I follow a lot of tech sites and gain invaluable knowledge from doing so, and I'd encourage you to try that with ourselves. So thank you very much for attending today. I hope you find the session useful. Obviously, it's only 30 minutes long, so we can only get through so much through so much today, but please do look out for our next webinar as we progress. Thank you very much. I'm ending the session. Thank you.